Miss Lisa, what are you doing back in the house?
Man, my Firebird took a poo on me.
It did.
Yeah.
Man, we just
did to cruise it at Firebird Fest, but 20 minutes round trip to Gateway Classic Cars.
Man, I tell you, we just can't get this thing to hang on the highway, huh?
No, sir, not at all.
Not at all. Well, this time here, guys, we got a perfect transmission, a perfect rear end. We thought we had a perfect motor for the longest, but we started getting antifreeze into the oil. Couldn't figure out why. Still ain't got to the answer yet, but we're assuming that the heads were put on without sealant on the threads on the head bolts. Now, we did pressurize the radiator system. We let it set last night and it lost 5 pounds. I wish we wouldn't have put bars leak in it first to stop the leak, but we thought it was minor, and that way she could cruise Firebird Fest. But now, since the bars leak's working a little bit, then we don't have the major leak that we had before. Before, she pressurized it and the gauge just went down pretty quickly, okay? Now, when we put a pressurize on it, the gauge will actually hold some pressure, and it dropped probably within 5 or 6 hours last night, probably 5 or 6 pounds. So we know we still got some leakage going somewhere into the oil. So what we're gonna do is pull both heads off probably, check them out really good. We're gonna pull the intake, check the ports out where they match to the head. Make sure we don't have any decay through this area, because these intakes are bad about getting decay in that area and leaking down into the motor too. So we're just gonna go through, check everything out, and also, the motor has a valve train noise now. Lisa didn't know that it had water in it, and when she drove it, it mixed up like milkshake really bad. And when she come back and checked it, it was about 3 inches over full. So we know we had 3 inches of water in the bottom of the pan that the oil pump picked up first and ran it through the motor, through the lifters, stuff like that. So, but she went to go drive it, and not knowing the water was in there, and all of a sudden here we have valve train noise that we can't get rid of, even with new oil. We put some Lucas in there to thicken it up even, to try to get the lifters to stay pumped up, but they will not stay pumped up anything above idle. We adjusted the valves, used to rev it up a little bit, and it just goes to sounding terrible. So we're gonna be pulling the lifters out of it, looking at the bottom of the lifters, look at the camshaft, and we're still gonna be replacing the cam. We're not gonna put another set of new lifters on the camshaft, since the cam has, what, 2,500 miles on it?
Roughly, yeah.
Something like that. So we're just gonna do it right, put a new cam in it, a new set of lifters again, find the water leak 100%, and get Miss Lisa back on the road.
Get back to enjoyment.
Back to enjoyment. But unbelievable, she had to bring it all the way back here to get it done right. So we didn't have anything to do with the motor, but we're definitely gonna have something to do with the motor, getting it back together and making sure it's 100%. So anyway, y'all stay tuned. Miss Lisa, have a great day.
You too. Thank
I'll
you,
catch you
Richie.
later. Yes, ma'am. Well, this is Richard back at you. We are back on Lisa's Firebird, and this thing, we were having issues with it getting water in the oil. If you look here, I did pull the intake off of it, and you can physically see green antifreeze down in the valley. So we're definitely getting water into the oil. And you can see how he siliconed the intake gaskets on, but he didn't put any silicone on the intake side. Nothing at all through the intake side of it, just on the head side of it, which is probably a no-no. I always seal both sides of my water port, no matter what you do on these. And then we always seal the threads on the bolts, on the heads. So we're gonna be pulling the head bolts out and putting liquid Teflon on the head bolts. And then I believe putting a new intake gasket, getting that cleaned up, and putting the cam and lifters in it. The lifters don't look very good neither. I've only pulled one of the lifters, but if you look at the intake port, you can see here how that gasket just was not sealing very good at all. The intake wasn't cleaned up properly to even accept a gasket. Even on this end too, you can just see, you can definitely see where some porting could be done, where you could come in and clean a lot of that up. I'm gonna flip it over, trying Let's see what this side looks like. Same thing there. You can just tell it does not look like the gaskets were sealing very well down on the bottom. There we go. As you can see there, and that's where I'm assuming that the water was probably running down and getting into the intake part of the motor there. Now I did pull the lifters out. Now this thing, like I said, she did run it with water and oil. When she come back and checked it after she heard lifters noise, she noticed that it was 3 inches over full and it was a milkshake. So we know we probably had 3 inches of water in the pan. And you can kind of see what the center of the lifter looks like. Now these are kind of beveled outward in the middle, kind of like a teaspoon. But you can definitely tell that something has gotten in there on that cam, and it would be water. Water and antifreeze. Antifreeze has got a little bit of an oil base to it to keep the water from freezing, and probably a few other type of chemicals, but water does not lubricate at all. It is a dry substance when it comes to lubrication. Like I said, we couldn't get the lifters to shut up in this thing. I mean, you could adjust them and they would just start ticking like crazy. Again, no more than you got it above idle, the lifters would just start ticking. So, well, anyway, we're gonna get the headers off, swap all the head bolts, get them sealed. We're gonna pull the front of the motor off, get the camshaft out of it, put a new camshaft in it and a set of lifters. Clean the intake up, clean everything up where it's supposed to be done, reseal it. You know, even when we get this resealed, this motor will set overnight before we ever start it. That way we know everything that we've done is definitely dry and sealed up nice and tight. And we'll get it back together and see how it goes from there. So, y'all stay tuned. Have a great day. I have antifreeze in the oil. We went to camshaft and stuff, so I'm putting the camshaft and fixing the water leak. I think it was the head gaskets and the head bolts. They didn't seal with Teflon on the threads, so that's my job. Well, we're back on Lisa's car, and we've run into another issue I wanted to show you here. And we actually found the issue where the water was coming into the motor. So that's what I was really wanting to do. Since we put the stop leak in it, stopped it, when we pressurized the motor through the radiator with a tester, a snap-on tester, it did leak down, but not very much, like 5 psi overnight. So I was going, oh no, now we're not going to be able to find this leak. We were thinking head bolts, but the head bolts they did put in there did have the sealant on them, because these are new head bolts. So you always want to put sealant on your head bolts if there's nothing on there. But if you look here at the intake gasket, you can see where the intake gasket is split. This is a water port. Here's the crack, going right into the valley where the lifters are. Now, we're having an issue. I cannot get this lifter out. The rest of them come out. They just spun a little bit. You can tell they had a little drag, but they did come out. This one here will not come out. So we were having issues with this rocker arm right here. We could adjust it and it would get loose. We could adjust it and it would get loose. So we pretty much know that the camshaft, probably lobe, is wiped out. When we took the intake off, this whole side of it was full of antifreeze. This side, not so much. But you can definitely see there where it trickled right through there. That's what that looked like when I pulled the intake off. So we're going to be pulling the heads off. We're going to be putting, take these studs out, put screw-in studs, clean the heads all up, make sure everything's 100% perfect there. Put new cam, new lifters. We're also going to be pulling the oil pan off, and we're going to be looking at the rod bearings since the motor was run with water. So we want to make sure that this motor is 100% when Miss Lisa gets back. All right, guys, on to the next. Can you tell me which lifter's bad? Well, this is Richard back at you. We're still on the Firebird. We've just got the pan off of it from the bad lifter and cam. You can see the metal in the pan, quite a bit of metal. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be pulling down the oil pump. We're going to be checking the bearings and see if any metal actually got through there. Now this does have an oil filter bypass on it, so that does worry me that some of the metal could have got through the filter. We always block these. They make a block off kit. Actually, you can buy and put in here that blocks it and forces all the oil to go to the filter when the oil's cold. So that's what that's designed for. When the oil's cold, it opens up, lets oil go through the bypass the filter. But we always block it because filters nowadays will flow enough oil for it to go all the way through the filter and never be bypassed. So anyway, let's get some lights under here. We're gonna get this thing apart, see what it looks like. Have a great day. Well, we are back on the Firebird. We've got the oil pan off of it. We've got the oil pump off of it. We've looked at some things here. One thing I really don't like that I've noticed is the oil bypass has not been blocked, or the kit put in there to block that. So that tells me there that oil went bypast the filter and got into the circuit. The bypass check valve right there is full of metal. You can see that. We would be taking that off and plugging that hole up right there and putting it back on. But that does tell me that oil did go past the filter into the circuit. So we're curious to see what the bearings look like. There was no metal up top at all in the valley, no metal in the heads, but I want to look at the bearings and see if we see anything going on there at all in any of them. So that's where we're at. You can come over here and see what the pan looked like. Pan's full of metal. Oil pump. Starting to get scarring inside. You can see it in there. Gears, same way. You can see here they did weld on the pickup tube. So I'm going to have to clean that up and get that weld off there and get that tube out of there to put it in the new pump. So anyway, it's going to be a job. So hopefully nothing got into the bearings. If it did, I see anything anywhere in there, then we're just going to pull the motor, disassemble it, put it in the instant clean machine, clean the block, do a quick hone on the cylinders and drop some rings and bearings in this thing and cam and stuff, put it back together for. It's just a big job. Metal isn't your friend. Have a great day. We're back on Lisa's Firebird, and we've got the pan off of it. Took the oil pump off of it. This is the motor that one of the lobes went bad on the camshaft. We had a water leak getting inside. There wasn't no metal up top, but there was a ton of metal in the pan. Now I did take off the main cap, and I will show you that here in just a second. And I took off a rod cap to see what type of metal was in there. The cooler bypass had a lot of metal in it, or not the cooler bypass, I'm thinking tranny stuff. But the oil filter bypass, you can see it was just full of metal. So if that would have been plugged off, all the oil would have had to gone through the filter, and it probably would have never entered the system to get into the mains and rods and stuff like that. But since that is spring operated, you can just take like this and just push on it, see? It's really soft. Designed when the oil is cold in the mornings, when it's really cold out, it bypasses the filter and feeds the circuit that way, and the oil gets hot, that closes, and all the oil goes through the filter. But Lisa isn't in a cold area where she lives, but still, oil did get passed, and it did get bypassed, so into the system. If you look at the main bearing there, you can see that it got in there. This is the oil pan full of metal. This is the back of the pickup screen for the oil pump. And of course, you can see here they welded it on. I'll have to clean that off and get this pickup off and put it on the new oil pump. But you can see down in here, we did got scarring in the oil pump too, so definitely the oil pump is gonna have to be replaced. So what we're gonna do, since we've got all that contamination in the motor, we're going to go ahead and pull this short block out. and totally disassemble it, clean all the circuitry out, get the crank polished, do a very light hone on the cylinders, and then drop some new rings and bearings back in it, and a new camshaft. So that's what's going to be happening, guys. There it is. Lots of fun. This is Richard back at you. We got Lisa's motor out of the car. Bad camshaft lobe, water in the motor, and a little bit of everything else. As I said, we got the pistons out. Cylinders don't look too bad. Actually, the cam bearings, they're terrible. They're like not even lined up with the holes. I was hoping I could show you. See that hole down in there, that bearing? Let me see if I can show you this one. Just barely see that hole right there? And then you can see this one. See, barely see that hole? That's because the bearing ain't lined up with the main cap hole right there. I can get that one better. That one's the better one, right there, see it? See all the way through. These, you can't, you can't, they're not in daylight. The hole's barely showing, so. This one here, you can see that one there is barely lined up with the hole too. So definitely gonna need cam bearings put to it, but this is what gets me even more. I took the rods out. We were thinking about putting a stroker kit in the block or just refurbishing this motor because I got like 2,500 miles on it. Cylinders look good, but these rods are trash. Look how much they grinded off this rod right here. Totally, the nub is totally gone. This is what a factory rod looks like. Got that nub on the end of it for strength stuff. Totally gone. Almost through the, look how thin that cap is right there. Same way with this one. Rounded it off. Same way with this one. Rounded it. That's the only one that wasn't touched in the whole motor, I think. Grounded on that one. That one looks a little more square, but still been grounded on. And then you get down here to these. Almost grinded plumb through the rod cap. Rods are trash. Look at that one. I mean, there ain't nothing left of the rod. I mean, unbelievable that thing didn't blow up. And of course, the main bearings are full of metal. Oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? But anyway, we're gonna get through it. Have a great day. This is the other head here. You can see we've already got fluid. Can you see that? It's starting to come around the valve there. Starting to come around the valve there. Gonna back up on it if you can see it any better that way. And that one starting to get wet. That one's starting to get wet. That one's dry. That one looks dry. So we definitely got a couple more there. Flipped it over and you got one exhaust there, you got an exhaust there, and you got one there starting to leak. Okay, Lisa, this is the worst video you're gonna see too. I'm assuming when they put the guides in, they must be a little bit crooked because the valves are only rubbing on one side of the valve. I'm gonna show you what the valve looks like. See how it's shiny? How it goes black? Shiny, black. Well, if you look at the seat's the same way. Shiny, black, All of them. See, that's a little bit better. But if you look at over here, shiny, black. And if you look at the valves, like I said, that was just one of them, shiny black. This one here, shiny black. Intake. So you can just, they're okay. The exhaust, you know, I haven't even wiped them off, looked at them, but they all got to be done. But it's got to have a physical valve job done on the heads because the valves are not seating properly because I believe the guides are put in a little bit crooked. But anyway, that's how the box showed up, and FedEx is leaving. So I just want to let you know that's your rotating assembly and the box is open. So just want to let you know. There's no retainers in the cam kit, and it showed that they're supposed to be in there. And that's the deals that go on top of the valves. So they are not in the cam kit. The lifters, the springs, the timing chain, the cam, the keepers, no retainers. There's the intake there. Yeah. Ooh, that's sexy. Yeah, buddy. Nice intake. Crankshaft is there. Oil paint's there. Pistons, rings, stuff here. 2 valve relief, pulley floater. And this is what I like about it. Come with some nice rods. Coming with the Eagle rods. So that's a must when you're just running stock rods before. So, on my bouncer, cam kit, flywheel. Retainers will be here tomorrow, he said. So, everything's going good.